Hello dear students, once again welcome to these quick revision guides that we are conducting from IAS Baba for your Prelims 2025. We are currently going to do, this is something that we had done previously also, which was widely received, very much applauded by the student community. We are putting out the top 20 species that are important for your Prelims 2025. Okay, so this series of videos is going to be a 5-part series. In each part, we discuss four species, and in total 20 species that are going to be important for your Prelims 2025. So for all those who are out there thinking, my God, there are so many species in news and what do I study, what do I not study, maybe consider this list and have a look at it, and I'll be giving out the details of these species, which all details that you need to have in your mind to answer certain questions. So without much delay, welcome to the first part of this 5-part series, and the first species that we're going to discuss is your sloth bear. Okay, now the reason why we have to discuss sloth bear is because we have a lot of news coming up in this category. First of all, the sloth bear, otherwise also called as the Indian bear. Okay, this Indian bear is in your vulnerable category. Okay, and you can see over here, there's a clear difference. So I'm going specifically with respect to what UPSC requests. So this Indian bear was in news because of its vulnerable category and also because of the fact of different threats that have been happening to its habitat. Okay, now when it comes to this Indian bear or the sloth bear, these species primarily eat termites and ants. Okay, and they are called, because of this specific eating habit of theirs, they are called as myrmecophagus. This eating habit, which involves termites and ants, etc., is called as myrmecophagus. You can either remember myrmecophagus or just remember that they eat termites and ants. Okay, so this Indian bear species, which is otherwise called as sloth bear, primary, the eating habit of it is termites and ants. If you look at the male and the female populations of it, the males are considered to be very large in size, okay, and the weight of it and the huge structure of it is very large. The females are much more smaller in size. At this point, I want to also drive your attention. You would have seen this even when we were small. So there is this group of community called as the Kalandars, and they specialize in making, doing this trick called as the dancing bear. And the bear that they use for this particular trick of theirs is called as your sloth bear or the Indian bear. Okay, now again, one more point. So you have the sloth bear or the Indian bear, used by Kalandars as the dancing bear, primarily eats termites and ants, and this species is marked by this huge muzzle kind of a nose structure. Muzzle means, you're having a tunnel, like, the nose of it is pretty much enlarged. Okay, so this long muzzle is the most prominent feature of this Indian bear. Okay, because I told you Indian bear, just have a quick look at the bears of India. You have an Asiatic black bear, you have the Himalayan brown bear, you have the sloth bear, which we just discussed, and you have the sun bear, which is having this very cute, collar-like thing, representing, the flamey yellow color thing. So now, if you look at the total populations, it's not the sloth bear which is the highest. It's actually the Asiatic black bear which has a very high population. But remember, the Asiatic black bear is not the Indian bear. The Indian bear is this one called as your sloth bear. Okay. Now moving on to the second species in our list, we have the Charles Darwin's frog. The Charles Darwin's frog was again rediscovered in India's Andaman Islands It's endemic to this particular region. And the reason why it's so important for us is because of two things. First of all, the IUCN category of it is vulnerable, making it in the category, I have always told you, critically endangered, vulnerable. If it falls in any of these categories, keep it aside with a little bit of importance. So already important in that sense. Then it's endemic. I have again told you, if a species is endemic and occurs only in specific areas of our country, it is important. So Charles Darwin's frog, again, important in that sense. What else is the importance? This is you have frog species. Okay. Now the Darwin's frog is actually a much evolved frog species. Why? Because this frog has developed a specific kind of egg laying method. Instead of laying the eggs on very easy, vulnerable positions where it can be attacked by predators, the Charles Darwin's frog finds these hollows in trees, etc., and gets into an upside down position and lays its eggs on the top part of hollows so that it cannot be easily captured by your predators. Okay, so it is known to lay eggs in the inner walls of tree holes in an upside down posture, making it a much more reproductively evolved frog species. And that's our second species that is considered important for us. The third species that is important, and I would say the third and the fourth are somewhat very similar. Okay, so the third is Neelakurni and the fourth is Metukurni. Okay, you might be thinking, yeah, Neelakurni, Metukurni seems very similar, and this is where UPSC can maybe play a trick on you. So let's have a look at what Neelakurni is. Neelakurni is a flowering shrub that blooms once every 12 years. IUCN has given it a vulnerable category. And to add to it, it is also a endemic shrub. It is only seen, it grows almost to up to 3 meter height or so. It's only seen in the high altitude shola grassland ecosystems of your southwest India and at an elevation of almost like 1300 to 2600 meters. That means it's a high altitude species that blooms once in 12 years. And right now, there's a lot of habitat loss for it from your tea and softwood plantations. Okay, so that is your Neelakurni. Now, let's have a look at Metukurni, which is your fourth species that we are discussing. Metukurni is also a small purple flowering shrub. It's endemic to Western Ghats, and this blooms only in 7 years. Okay, it blooms only in 7 years. That is the first difference. Doesn't end over there. The second is this Metukurni is actually a little bit more widely populated, more widely located than your Neelakurni. It occurs primarily in an area called as your Kurinnimala Sanctuary, which is part of the Iravikulam National Park in Kerala. You don't have to learn the names of all of these areas, but remember you have a very specific location for your Metukurni. And the areas where Metukurni is located, you also see it being the flagship species. That means this is like the brand ambassador of that particular area. Now, these are all the good parts. The one other major difference between Neelakurni and Metukurni is the leaves of Metukurni are toxic and it cannot be used for human consumption as opposed to Neelakurni. So, there are two differences. One, Neelakurni blooms only in 12 years, Metukurni blooms in 7 years. Neelakurni is not considered toxic. The leaves of Metukurni are considered as toxic and unfit for human consumption. So now we have done the first set of 4 species that can be considered as important for your prelims 2025. We started off with your sloth bear. Then we moved on to your Charles Darwin's frog. Then we had Neelakurni, and then we had Metukurni. Stay tuned and watch the second part for the next set of important species.